Up next is a panel discussion on the cloud convergence with AI for data-driven innovation. Moderating this discussion is Mike Meriton, co-founder and COO of EDM Council, and joining him is Vimal Venkatram, country manager India at Snowflake, and Jigar Halani, director, solution sales, architect, and engineering at NVIDIA. Mike, over to you.
Welcome, everyone, and thank you to the nasscom team for their good work on organizing the Cloud Summit. And today's panel is entitled Cloud Convergence with AI for Data-Driven Innovation. My name is Mike Meriton. I am the co-founder and chief operating officer for the EDM Council, one of the leading global associations dedicated to data and analytics professionals. And we are also partners with nasscom. My background includes having been both an Oracle and Dun & Bradstreet executive, and most recently was the CEO of an IBM spinoff and master data management company called Golden Source. In 2005, when the very first chief data officers were being appointed, I helped found the EDM Council and was the first chairman. Today, we've been leading the world's largest work group for cloud data management capabilities, or CDMC, which includes the top financial services firms and others, the top 3 global cloud companies, Amazon, Microsoft, and Google, and other leading firms to develop the data management standard for cloud and hybrid cloud for protecting sensitive data and accelerating the cloud journey. So I'm very excited about this particular panel and my panelists, so let's get on to that. So this topic about convergence in cloud and leveraging AI is a very, very important topic. If you really think about the massive transformation and tough times we're all going through with the pandemic, this has really created conditions that have made data and analytics even more important. And frankly, from what I can see, that there's been a significant pivot in business models and adaptation to pure digital environments that has really fueled the need to move forward. It's no longer optional. This is something you have to get onto. So with no further ado, let me introduce my panelists for today. Our first is Vimal Venkatram with Snowflake, and our second panelist is Jigar Halani with NVIDIA. So gentlemen, I would look to you for a little more background for the audience. Vimal, would you like to go first?
Thank you so much, Mike, and it's my pleasure to be on this panel with you and Jigar today. Hi, everyone. My name is Vimal Venkatram. I'm the country manager India for Snowflake, and I lead the entire sales team for India. I've been at Snowflake for more than 2 years now, and I've seen a lot of changes as far as data and the adoption of cloud is concerned in many markets, including Southeast Asia and India. I've been in technology sales a long time, worked for many organizations like Oracle, Citrix, CA, Hitachi Data Systems, MuleSoft, a Salesforce company today, and now finally with Snowflake.
Wonderful. Thank you, Vimal, and great to have you. Jigar, do you mind giving us a little more on your background?
Sure. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, nasscom team, for this panel and session. Good morning, everyone. I hope you all are safe and healthy. It's been a real pleasure to be part of this particular panel. I am Jigar Halani. I'm the director of Solution Architect and Engineering team, probably one of the smartest pre-sales team in the country that I lead. It's been close to 4 years that I have been with NVIDIA now. And prior to this, I was with Wipro for about 9 years, and 2 more system integration companies, which I have catered to the Indian ecosystem. I believe it's like, it's been a great journey to see the transitions of supercomputers to data generating supercomputers to now the AI oil generation, AI, sequencing supercomputers. I'm sure this panel discussion is going to be pretty good, exciting discussion in terms of how this oil is getting refined in the cloud ecosystems. So looking forward for that.
So Jigar, thank you. And I'd like to start the first question with you, if that's okay. Mm-hmm. And to me, this is just a very fascinating time, but it is also a time where, even though it may be obvious, everyone is searching for the business case and as well the use cases that really make this exciting. In other words, the way to motivate teams to execute is to really generate some exciting results. So I guess the question I would put forward to you is, what are the use cases that you see today that might be in production that are creating the results that other companies should be saying, let's pay attention, let's do something about this? What's your take on that?
That's a great question, Mike. I think every org is today looking forward for such use cases to transform themselves into a digital twin, how they call it as. And I personally believe that we should categorize this question into two buckets. The bucket one is if the organization has too much of data which is getting generated, which must be the reality. Nobody is barred from this particular fact today, right? Or the other way to look towards these use cases are the demand in which their spend is happening, right? Now, let's take some examples. If I'm a supply chain company, I will have tons of data in terms of my, POs, in terms of, my loadings and unloadings, and many other things, right? I'll be looking for use cases on OCR. I'll be looking on the, cases on my supply chain automations and stuff like that. If I would have been a financial company, probably my priority would be to have, my call centers and my support ecosystems to go and make use of this AI world, right? So the use cases varies from, industry to industry. If I'm an e-commerce, search, click-through ratios, catalog, all these use cases are mattering today, and that's generating probably one of the finest revenue with the highest amount of profits, because I'm able to do a better recommendation, put right products in front of my customers, and thereby generating higher revenues and a quick turnaround for my customers as well. So we should broadly categorize these use cases into two buckets, and every industry has various options today in terms of what adoption they will go by in this AI journey today.
Jigar, great results always get the great attention. So Vimal, what's your take on this? What's your perspective?
So fantastic question, Mike, and Jigar, thanks for your amazing insights as well. To add to Jigar's point, every industry that we're seeing has gone through a massive transformation, right? And especially in the last 18 months with the unfortunate pandemic that has hit people, every industry has also realized they have to completely change their business models. For example, if I were to take banking or financial services as an example, we're talking different use cases, right? From risk, or you're talking about empowering investment decisions, for example, or how do I now superpower personalized experiences? If I take insurance as an example, we're looking at how do I now look at a policyholder 360, or how do we look at augmenting fraud detection and risk measurement in pretty much near real time. If I look at retail now, which has become an extremely important topic for many, many of the folks today who are stuck at home. So you want all your goods to come to your home, right? So a lot of retailers are facing massive challenges on how do I now score items, for example? How do I ensure that my delivery timelines are completely on demand with my supply chain efficiencies brought in? So all of these in different industries are very, very good use cases today that we're seeing adopted, not only from a global standpoint, but Southeast Asia and India as well.
Yeah, Vimal, really fascinating points, because certainly one of the big opportunities with cloud is the ability to essentially scale your resource to your data and business requirements in a way that frankly was impossible for companies to cost effectively do that. You can scale up on demand, and therefore there's new data sources you can attack, new opportunities that really couldn't have been contemplated before. And if you then link that hyperscale data with the ability to have hypercompute capability along with AI, there's some really cool things that just weren't fathomable before. And we'll cover a few of those, but all of this sounds great. But at the end, you have the board at the top, the key stakeholders, and no one wants to take a lot of risk, and you better talk a solid business case. So that's really my second question. And Vimal, if I could stay with you on this one, it would be great to get your observation that you can talk exciting opportunity to top executives, but there's still that cold reality of you really need to put together why and what the return on investment is going to be. What's your take on and guidance to the audience with these huge opportunities? How do you still project that right business case to the board and set the right expectations?
So thank you, Mike. Fantastic question. And I think this is a question we see a lot of our own customers and prospects grapple with. One of the key things that we'd like to tell customers, and the way we've seen the world change, especially like I said, in the last 18, 20 months, if we take a bank as an example, right? Typically in an Indian context, there'll be a lot of branches. Each one of the bank have a lot of people coming to a branch. But when you talk about the pandemic and when people were stuck at home, all the channels of banking entirely became digital. There was absolutely no physical access to a bank, and the bank was essentially a mobile application or a website or any kind of third-party applications that you connect to a bank, for example, through a payment systems or things like that. It became entirely digital. So when you talk about the new age or the absolute change which has happened in the way even customers interact with service providers like a bank, for example, it becomes very important to not look at a return on investment or a business case from what has worked for you in the past. So what worked for you 24 months ago for certainly will not work for you in the next 24 months. You have to now reevaluate your priorities based on the new normal or the new abnormal, as I call it. You have to understand what's happening today. What are we doing to ensure our justifications for a business are not entirely driven just by return on investment? There is also a huge part of what happens if I don't invest at all. My competitors are not, from a banking standpoint, my competitors may not be another bank. It could be a financial, fintech player in the market or a technology platform provider who's entering a payment space, for example, or micro lending or things like that. Those become extremely critical events for us to justify certain spends on investments, for example. So that's something I'd really like to leave with everybody in the audience, that don't look at business cases based on past experience or past data. You will have to do a lot of things which a technology platform player does it naturally because they've been doing it for years. They've perfected that over many, many iterations. And the one thing I'd like to leave, finally to say is fail fast. Don't look at 18 months or 24 months of projects. Fail fast. Come, iterate. If something works, keep building on it. If it doesn't work, discard it and move to the next item as well.
So, Vimal, the old strategy of let the other guy figure it out and we'll eventually try this out. It might be, I'm almost hearing you say too late.
Yes.
So you do not have unlimited time, and doing nothing might actually be a very negative result for your organization in a competitive landscape where people are moving at faster pace. Jigar, what's your take on this? The whole idea of ROI business case, no doubt, NVIDIA, you're facing that question from any senior stakeholder board.
That's so true, Mike. And I fully concur with what Vimal said. You need to fail fast. You need to reinvent yourself. The businesses are transforming themselves extremely at a rapid pace. I mean, a classic example from the same, financial side that Vimal talked about it, right? We have seen Indian banks struggling during the first phase of pandemic last year, right? In terms of serving their customers, their chatbots. I mean, they were not able to cater to the online demand, which was surging across, right? Nobody even thought about it that, India will ever, or the world will ever demand or go online so much. Right. So if we would have not experimented, we would have not, had these options on their websites, or would have had not options to scale, maybe having a cloud environment where they can burst out when such a situation comes in. You would have never done these kind of testings. You would have certainly failed, right? And failed miserably. So in my view, use cases are going to grow. The new aspects of the business are going to reinvent every 12 months. And with that, you need to experiment with things and succeed quickly, thereby make them as part of your automation process.
That makes a lot of sense, Jigar. So, the adage is you get what you put into things in life. And even though there's tremendous promise and potential with cloud and AI, and you can take on use cases that just weren't fathomable even a few years ago, there's still investments to be made. So Jigar, to stay with you on this topic, which is, what are those key prerequisite investments across the team, skills, platform, and culture to make sure the team is going to get the best value out of making these, pursuing these use cases?
Oh, you have hit the nail, Mike. Let me tell you. I think one of the key aspects today is the asset that you have, right? And when I say asset that you have is your tools, your teams, and the way you execute these things in line and length, right? And I again divide this into two aspects. In my view, your biggest asset is your data, right? That's the oil. And that means you need to really take care of your data. It's no more the journey of a decade ago where we used to talk about finding a nail in the, in the ocean, right? We are talking about the era where we are looking for more cleaner data. If not, at least the process which can clean this data and get some outcomes much more faster than ever before. And the moment we talk about that process to make this data much more cleaner and look beautiful to give me the outcomes that I'm looking for, I would definitely need great tools and super solid teams which maintains the quality that I'm looking for, right? Taking a very simplistic example, say I'm a manufacturing hub, and I have installed cameras just from a security perspective just before pandemic, and I have invested all my efforts into automating the processes in my factories. Now during the pandemic, the same camera is now going to turn the gold for you because you can do the video analytics and build so many number of use cases out of it just to check the automation process that you have set in your factories are working properly or not, right? Or the simplistic use cases like employees who are working inside it are maintaining the proper social distancing and wearing masks or not, right? Following the normal norms of what pandemic has undergone basically, or still undergoing, right? Now, to do this, what you need is a well-defined process, a great team and great tools. So let's again quickly talk about teams, right? So if it is AI, the first and foremost thing that you need is a great team who can clean this data, cleanse this data, make this data ready for your process, followed by a super solid tools. The good news is most of the cloud providers and the open source community has now extraordinary tools which has come up in place. Make use of that. And then finally, a good amount of machine learning, deep learning specialists, ML ops people, and then DevOps people as well. If you have combination of these three things, in my view, you are the biggest winner, and you can get anything out of your data to make your business succeed.
That's a great response. Vimal, do you want to add to this?
Sure. Thanks, Mike. I think from Jigar, great points as well. I think if I were to look at the key prerequisites, I think the first I would call is the intent to change. So organizations today need to have an intent, and this needs to percolate from the top as well. So many times what we've seen is there would be mid to senior level management who wants to change, but sometimes the senior leadership or the C-levels or the execs, the CEOs or even the board, there is reluctance to change or possibly not a great understanding that change is inevitable and it's going to come at a very rapid pace. So that intent to change across the organization, followed by what Jigar absolutely said, how do we now invest in tools and processes and a whole lot of efficiencies to make it a lot cleaner to extract data. So we've heard about data being the new oil. I think we're slowly reaching a point where there are enough tools, from a cloud standpoint and things from a Snowflake perspective that we can actually potentially call data as a renewable source of energy as well. Where it becomes clean, you're able to now harvest and make a lot of sense of the data that you have. And not in data that you have today, but also trying and incorporating third-party data sets, for example, which are available. How do I now get not only access to my internal business units, but how do I now get access potentially by sharing my data with suppliers for supply chain efficiencies, for example, or logistics providers if I'm a retail store for ensuring that my deliveries are always tracked and in real time. Finally, if I were to look at how do I mix and match, let's say, third-party data like weather, or even COVID-19 data sets, or even some kind of marketing data, and ingesting that with our own data sets. So all of these become prerequisites when you're looking at how do I now transform an organization. And finally, any platform that you choose is ultimately a means to an end. It's not an end by itself. The outcomes that you want to drive determine the platforms and the technologies that you decide to choose.
Vimal, all great insights, and it's great hearing both of you sort of bring together the different perspectives, because all of these points are super valid. Let's look at the other point of view on any opportunity, that there can be challenges, obstacles, problems, and though there's great promise, there's also risks and other factors you have to bring to bear. So let's start, Vimal, with you. What are those obstacles to scale about tool adoption, protecting sensitive data in cloud and hybrid cloud? What's your advice to the audience on the issues you need to keep in mind if you want to do this right?
Fantastic question. Again, one of the most important questions that we get asked in any kind of a customer or a prospective conversation. So if I would take an example of, let's say, a financial services organization, because obviously data is very sensitive there. The first thing you need to understand is what kind of data am I moving, let's say, to a public cloud platform. So understanding of what you're trying to do. When you come to evaluation of technologies, so let's take Snowflake as an example. We have many, many financial services customers globally. We have large banks like Capital One Bank. We have many insurance organizations. We have many, many fintech startups, including a few in India with the likes of Khatabook and Epify, which is a neobank. We take data very, very seriously. So data encryption at rest, at flight, so all these become very, very critical to ensure that your sensitive data is always protected at any given point in time. And the entire thing about hybrid cloud. Now, we talk about movement to public cloud, and a lot of customers still have applications which are in their own data centers. Now, could be for regulatory concerns, could be that the applications are not ported for the public cloud, for example. That's an architectural challenge. But when you look at new age technologies like Snowflake, it really doesn't matter where your data resides. You could have a core application in your data center. You could have custom applications in the public cloud. You could be subscribing to certain SaaS applications which are entirely cloud-based. You could have a lot of, to Jigar's point, IoT data, let's say, coming from your shop floor, your cameras, your IoT sensors. All of them get ingested into a single platform with the right security architectures at scale. Now, we are talking sometimes petabytes of scale as well in near real time or batch. So this architecture, when we talk about how do you manage sensitive data, potential obstacles? One is to understand what you're trying to move. How do you make sense of all these vast silos of disparate information and then bring it into a single platform? Because anything that you want to do around data, if it's not in a single source of truth or a single platform, it's not real.
That's great. Jigar, I know we're moving on time. Do you want to just add to that before we move to the next question?
No, I think Vimal covered most of it, Mike. The only thing that I want to say is microservices are becoming like a standard norm today. If I have to just add on what Vimal said, right? Data resides anywhere. Could be in your data center, could be in cloud, right? But the way you use them and where you deploy them, today technology has matured enough to handle and tackle these situations. So in my view, hybrid cloud is here to stay for very long. It has matured pretty good, and I'm sure there are always improvement areas, but microservices are all across. Probably on the platform that we are talking about it, I'm sure it can be run from cloud. It could be run from my on-prem as well. I could still run it from cloud and save my data on-prem as well. All these options are enabled today.
Yeah, and Jigar and Vimal, one thing I wanted to share is the global cloud work group that's been running for 18 months to publish these guidelines. About 4 weeks ago, we published the first, which is 14 controls for protecting sensitive data in cloud and hybrid cloud. This is available for everyone. It's a free license for the global markets to download. The global regulators have all been being briefed on this because they all, for their jurisdictions, have to protect sensitive data subject to their legal requirements. Many countries like India, hopefully soon passing its personal data privacy bill out of Congress. So every country now is having to deal, and every industry is now having to pay attention to sensitive data. So that's why this work group published these controls, which can be automated to protect sensitive data across jurisdiction. So it's a time where that is so important to get scale. So I'm going to move to this sort of final question and your final key takeaways, which what's the future? Where is this going? And to bring the hope back to the audience that there can be some really exciting value we can bring to end customers and serving, frankly, a world that needs a lot of help. Let's start, I guess, with on this final question with Vimal. Would you like to run with that one? Or actually,
Sure.
Jigar, I'm sorry, my apologies. I think I got the order incorrect this time. So Jigar, go over to you on that.
Sure, Mike. I mean, my view is we have 5 things to consider pretty hard as a concluding remark: data, connectivity, infrastructure, security, and ultimately the management of all of these things, right? And as I said, hybrid cloud or cloud is here to stay. AI is here to disrupt, and the approach that we need to take it is to change our mind, start to adopt these new age stuff, build the use cases, maybe fail fast, as Vimal just mentioned that in the initial stage as well, learn from it, and then deploy them in the right environments, right? And scale them as and when the need arises. Just scale them across. You should be prepped for similar situations like COVID, because now everything is going to go digital. Even my mother is digital, let me tell this pretty honestly, during this pandemic, right? So, which means the scale is going to grow multifold.
Absolutely. Thank you. You have great comments. Vimal, for your the future and closing remarks.
Thanks, Jigar, and thanks, Mike. To add to Jigar's point, I think my entire family, even people who are 75 and above, are entirely digital today, right? From banking to ordering groceries, they're all well versed in any kind of technology today. So digital is a reality. And to add to that, I think what I've seen change a lot in the last 2 years is I've been in sales a long time. We've sold to customers. We've sort of pitched solutions to customers. Eventually, the cycle of selling is now moving to the cycle of buying. So it's a huge pivotal change where customers are now realizing that their skin in the game is also very, very important. The understanding of the use cases, the understanding of the outcome they want to drive is as important as the technology that might enable those outcomes. We can come in and we can, you can pitch cloud technologies. You can say this is going to really change a lot of things from an internal business standpoint. But until everyone is putting their skin in the game, saying my intent to change is there. It's not just that I pay some technology vendor X millions of dollars, wave a magic wand, and lo behold, my outcomes are achieved. It's not going to work that way anymore. Customers need to have and own that responsibility of working closely with these different technology partners to enable those very, very significant business outcomes for them. So that's, I think, a key takeaway that I'd like to leave for everyone.
Absolutely. And by the way, Vimal, to you and the Snowflake team for supporting this panel and this summit, thank you very much. Jigar, for you as well with NVIDIA and your comments on this panel, thank you. And to the NASSCOM team for honestly organizing this summit. Our hope is for more of this type of information exchange, because the world is changing so quickly and there's so much need right now. So this has been a great panel. I think my key takeaway would be this. We actually had one of the companies in our organization do a study of the largest wealth managers in the world. And they looked at percentage of your revenue spend on AI, cloud, and so forth. And they did the analysis to say, does it really make a difference? And how do you, and those that actually, as you mentioned, Vimal, and they go and fail fast and continue their investments and learn, are outpacing the market right now in an exponential way. In other words, by waiting, you're falling way behind is the ultimate message. And it's now time to act in a world that's allowing us to do very different things and to create a lot of good. So with that, thank you everyone for attending this panel. Again, thank you to the NASSCOM team and to Vimal and Jigar for a great conversation. And take care of everyone. We wish you really good for the rest of the summit.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mike, Meriton, Vimal Venkatram, Jigar Halani, thank you so very much for such candid insights.